Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. On today's topic is maybe not such a popular one or a fun one to talk about. Today, we're talking about failing forward. And I love the term. I love the concept of failing forward. I think John Maxwell wrote a book by that title several years ago. And in the book, he was really talking about learning from our mistakes, right? And that's a great thing to do. That's a great thing to learn from. I mean, certainly if we're going to make mistakes, and we are going to make mistakes, but certainly if we are, let's learn from them, right? And so that's where he came up with the term of failing forward, making a mistake, but learning from it and then moving forward from it. And I love that concept. The book was pretty good. He also wrote one a few years later called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And it was interesting in that book, he shared a very, one of his mistakes that he learned from. And it was one of those stories that you just really almost don't want to tell. But what was interesting is that he did share that mistake and that he owned it and he learned the lesson from it. And I think that's the key. So today's topic, failing forward. And I really just wanted to kind of break that principle down and talk about that a little bit and then share an example, because not too long ago, I had a failing forward moment. And it was something that, it was going to happen sooner or later. I got LinkedIn Live access. And, to me, LinkedIn Live and going live and those kind of things, I've done a lot of recordings and podcasts and interviews and things like that, but I haven't done much LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live or anything like that. And so when I got LinkedIn Live access just a couple months ago, I thought, well, here's a growth opportunity. I'm going to learn how to use LinkedIn Live. And so I scheduled the LinkedIn Live. I did a post inviting people to join my LinkedIn Live and got all set, got ready to go. And the moment came to go live and I couldn't get the technology to work. And I don't really yet understand why. I got it to work very successfully, like my streaming software was working very successfully to Facebook Live. That was no problem. But for some reason, something between the streaming software and LinkedIn Live, the two just were not talking to each other. And there was nothing that I could figure out how to change or anything to change in the settings. And when you're under pressure like that, of course, you get ready to go live and the moment comes and you start to turn things on. And that's the moment that you realize it's not working. And so now you're scrambling under pressure, or I was certainly trying to figure it out on the fly, on the go, and the clock's ticking. And then I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've put out this very public post inviting people to watch this LinkedIn Live. And if they are watching, they're getting a black blank screen. Very definite moment of what some people would call failure, right? But it's really not failure. It's only failure if we don't learn from it. It's only failure if we quit trying. If I let that be the end of my LinkedIn Live attempts, then it could be called failure. But if I learn the lesson and learn the mistake and grow from that, that's what's moving us forward, right? Not making the mistake. Because here's the thing, we're human. We are going to make mistakes. We're going to have opportunities of growth and learning lessons. And, a lot of times in life, we learn what works by learning what doesn't work. Learning what doesn't work, it gives us a much greater lesson, right? Success doesn't teach us anything. Success doesn't teach us anything. It teaches us that this worked once, but it may not work again because things change. And so we don't really learn a lot from our successes. We learn much more from our failures, or we have potential. We have possibility to learn much more from our failures. So a recent example of where I had an opportunity to fail forward, could be a very public example. I actually had to go back, and anyone who had clicked attending on the LinkedIn Live event on LinkedIn, I actually went back and offered them the link to the recording so that they did not feel like they were missing out or anything like that. Because if they were really looking forward to the subject that I was teaching about, I didn't want them to miss the opportunity just because I couldn't get the technology to work. So when those mistakes happen, when those lessons come, or those life lessons are handed to us, that's the reflection piece, is looking back and, number one, identifying where the misstep happened, where the wrong turn happened, what went wrong. And then number two, what do I need to do to fix it? Right? What do I need to do to correct it? And I think the biggest principle out of all of this is, when we fail forward, when we make a mistake, the best thing that we can do is own that. And that's what I loved from John Maxwell's example in his book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, is he shares the story of, he was getting ready, obviously he's he speaks and travels and writes a lot of leadership books. So obviously he travels a good bit, right? He's always traveling, going through the airports, flying to different places. He's incredibly busy. And he shares an example of where someone had given him a gift of a firearm, and he had put that in like his briefcase or his bag, and then totally forgot about it. And then he shares the story of getting ready to go to the airport and going to travel somewhere to a speaking engagement. And it's all the way that he gets to security. And he puts his bag on the conveyor, and the little conveyor moves and the bag starts to go in. And then he realizes, he has that moment where he realizes he's left this gift from a friend, this firearm, in the briefcase. And then he panics. And so then he shares the story of what happened next, and all of the potential problems that could have come. And, because it's considered a possible felony, I think, to carry a firearm through airport security. So anyway, fortunately, he didn't have any severe long-term consequences from that, but he is very transparent in saying, you know what, when we make that mistake, we've got to own it. And that's an example of when he did that. And I think that's the biggest principle. When we're failing forward, the best thing that we can do is adopt it and own it, because that takes, number one, that takes character, but it also shows a level of maturity and growth, and saying, I realize I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I want other people to realize that I know I'm not perfect, and that when I make a mistake, I'm going to acknowledge it and own it, and then act to correct it. Right. And that's where it becomes that forward growth. Everybody has mistakes. Everybody has failures, quote unquote. That's just life, and part of the human experience is we make mistakes, but not everybody grows from them. Not everybody fails forward. Some people just fail or fail backward. And that's the key thing, is if we're growth oriented, we can have that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? A fixed mindset means that when we make mistakes, we just say that's part of our identity, is having that fixed mindset that's saying when mistakes happen, when things go wrong, a fixed mindset doesn't try to seek a way to grow from it. It just says it is what it is. Growth mindset says, what it is, but I can get better from this experience. And the growth mindset is the one that's looking forward and saying, what can I learn? And that's key. Reflecting back on the lessons that yesterday has to teach us. And sometimes it's just this morning, sometimes it's last year, but we have so many opportunities, and particularly I think when this comes to personal interactions with people as leaders, whether it's in our personal relationships or our professional relationships, we are going to have numerous examples or encounters with other people throughout the day. That's just part of interacting with people. And I guarantee you, we get it wrong more often than we know or than we think. I guarantee you, we get it wrong more often than we even realize. But if we will take a few minutes, maybe at the end of the day or the end of the week, and pause for some reflection, look back over the interactions that we had for the week. What went right? What didn't go right? What can I do better next time? Right? And that's the opportunity for growth. We're not always going to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect. But if we can grow from the experiences, then that helps us be better prepared next time. I've shared with you before one of my favorite quotes from Michael Josephson: you don't have to be sick to get better. You don't have to be sick to get better. There's nothing wrong with us, but we don't have to be sick to get better, to grow, to improve, to say, you know what, I didn't do this exactly the way it could have been done or the best outcome, but I can learn from this. I can do better, and I want to. It's not going to happen automatically. Growth does not happen automatically. We must be intentional, and reflection back on the lessons that yesterday has to teach us is one of the best ways that we can do that. Until next time.